little bit hazy for me.
I'm thinking if Hunter is the deck that can actually defeat all of the Amaz decks in here. Because Savjz already proved
Hmm.
that Hunter is good versus almost everything. It's like the golden deck.
I don't know. I don't know how it fares against Paladin. Paladin, I feel like actually has a really good shot against Hunter because Savannah Highmane is not that big of a threat. You have Humility plus 2 other Peacekeepers plus a bunch of taunts and heals. It really depends on how Paladin is able to pace and budget their resources for all kinds of threats. And also, again, if Hunter curves out really well and Paladin plays really slow, then I think Paladin struggles. But overall, I would say Paladin's great against Hunter.
I certainly agree. And now we can look at the game with the mulligan already over. Amaz having the coin and a pretty good start with all those spiders, Juggler, Void Walker. Seems pretty good. And Savjz, he did innervate Harvest Golem. It's a pretty interesting play. What do you think about it, Froden?
I think it's great. You know, Savjz might have a little insight into what his opponent's playing. Even if it is handlock, you're able to kind of bash it in. You are a token druid. You're trying to sneak in damage, and you have Savage Roar in your hand. So I think Savjz is playing the opening great with this Innovator Harvest Golem rather than saving it for Spectral Knight.
It's a pretty tricky play because normally you would probably want to just keep your Innervate to fix your curve and have those cards like Spectral Knight being played on turn 3 or even Ancient of Lore on turn 5. Oh my god, he picks it up.
Whoa, second Innervate.
For Spectral Knight.
He's now playing 4 mana ahead of his opponent. Well, 5 actually, because Amaz is yet to pick up his Mana Crystal now. And that is devastating. You can't just Soulfire this. You have to use your minion to trade. Luckily, Zoo is one of the best at using his minion to trade and being able to get good value, especially with knife jugglers.
And now 2 knives will fly from the spiders and they hit.
Nice, they hit the board, which is exactly what Amaz wants. 3 on the minions. That's really important because, again, it's going to make his life difficult to trade, and it becomes much easier, especially with something like Abusive Sergeant on one of the 1/1 Spectral Spiders. Amaz's RNG on these knife jugglers have been extremely crucial for how this game is going to develop, because if this Spectral Knight stays alive and continues to pick up good trades on some of the mid-range units, like say like a Dark Iron Dwarf, then Savjz is able to climb back, but Zoo is up in the cars and they will be able to wipe the board, and that might be lights out.
So between us, I'm not sure how many people are watching now, but between us, I'm not surprised. Amaz had a run with really good RNG before, so he's known as a player who actually played Ragnaros. I wouldn't be surprised if he's actually playing Knife Juggler as well.
Oh my goodness, he gets the exact juggle anyways because he just needed to avoid the Spectral Knight to go for a very convenient board clear guarantee. And now Savjz is looking at something like a swipe in order to kind of bail him out of here.
And this is not a swipe, just Spore of the Wild. So being Savjz, what do you do? Ancient of Lore will be pretty nice, but this turn is kind of dead. On the other hand, you're staring only at 3 points of damage, and you still have 25 points of health. So if you play a minion here, I'd say you still look pretty good. Even if the next turn you don't do anything, then Ancient of Lore will help you to replenish the hand. Oh my god, the Void Terror pickup.
Void Terror comes out with Soulfire. This game feels like it's already slipping away from Savjz. But when you have Void Terror and Soulfire to gain tempo and a strong board, wow. And the fact that Soulfire doesn't lose a card. The fact that he's going to tap after the Soulfire on turn 5 and put out a 4/4 minion with a 3/5 just feels a little unfair in this situation. How is Savjz supposed to climb back? He needs more than a swipe now in order to clear the board.
This board is ridiculous. Even a card like Poison Seeds that will turn the board into an army of 2/2s is still bad.
Well, you know, Amaz, again, being able to continue to pressure like this is so crucial because you don't want Druid to ever clear your board, especially if they're running more of that mid-range centric with things like Argent Commander to pick up 2-for-1s. But Zoo can keep up this pace forever. You know, Druid's just top decking while you're able to draw 2 cards per turn, and your board's really resistant to AoE.
That Nerubian Egg, by the way, is also a pretty nice pickup. I would even think about not buffing the Void Terror and just going with a Nerubian Egg buff and just continue bashing my opponent with the cards. Right now, Savjz is just looking at his defeat. As what can you even do? You just heal with the Ancient of Lore? How much
Well,
damage?
He's counting to see if he dies anyways, assuming he heals. Let's see, there's 12 right now. He's looking for 5, so Doomguard off the top finishes the game for Amaz. But I guess he can't get that lucky. He ends up getting an Argent Squire.
Still, his board is amazing. He can really feel safe in here. He can do anything. He can just go for face. Doesn't have to trade. Druid has only 2 cards. Next turn, it's an 8 mana turn. Even a combo won't do anything in here. Wait, is he actually going for trade?
No, I like going for face. The trade is if he wants to protect things like his Void Terror from going down, but you have a Nerubian Egg that's taunted. Ooh, I don't feel like he has to do this. I feel like, I mean, he's going for a safe play, but I feel like he doesn't have to. He puts the opponent where, like, it's even also difficult for him to even attack with hero power.
And a
Savjz draws a
finally comes.
swipe, by the way, which is a really important card because now he's able to deal with his 4/6, and it might allow him to stay alive a little bit longer.
He's actually getting a specific board. I mean, he has a 2/1, 3/5, a 1/1, and he's not dead yet.
But wait, he has got 4 damage. Oh no, Amaz is 1 damage from ending the game.
Is he 1 damage of lethal?
Yes, you might be able to say that.
How much damage of lethal is Amaz?
He's 1 damage off lethal. But I think he
crazy.
continue to press.
He
Nope,
still
he's
looks pretty good in here.
Yeah, he's just gonna trade.
You just make sure that there is no way that your opponent can actually win this game. And with 6 life and 2 cards, it's damn hard to come back.
Yeah, the Nerubian Egg popping also presents just a problem because even if you can deal with the board, there's just a minion that sits there and it's just you can't get through it fast enough. Savjz he's dealing with the board, but again, he's running out of time and options. And I think with the deduction that he's using everything he has, but he's gonna die anyways to the backswing. This game
Dead
is
on
over.
board. Dead on
Maz
board.
will take the first game of this series off of the zoo, and Savjz loses an important deck in the Druid.
By the way, I'm not sure if dead on board phrase is actually popular. In normal card games, when your opponent has something, well, you have cards on board that actually kill you. That's that DOB, the dead on board phrase. So you don't even need the cards from your hand to finish your opponent. Something that was used before. So Savjz is down 1 game in his best of 7 series, and he's going for a Warlock deck as well. And this time, it's not a Demon Lock, it's not a Zoo, it's a good old Handlock with some new cards.
Yeah, I think the handlock is all about things like Molten Giants and Taunts. If you have Molten Giants, and you know you're playing against Zoo, then there becomes a very strong tipping point where you set up a wall and Zoo can't do anything about it whatsoever. Iron Beak Owl is your best bet unless you're playing something like Black Knight. But other than that, if Zoo hits that wall of Molten Giants, then the matchup completely becomes unwinnable for Zoo unless they have Power of Overwhelming to burst through. And like Iron Beak, it's like a very specific set of cards, and that's not always guaranteed that you'll be able to draw it in the right situation.
I really like that Savjz is actually running the Nerubian Egg. It's not a card that every Handlock is running. I know Colenta was running those as well in the WC qualifier. Nerubian Egg provides you this a bit of extra of taunt if you are able to taunt it with Sun Fury Protector or Defender of Argus. And against the Zoo, it's kind of like a funny card because they have to destroy it to go through it because it's taunted, but on the other hand, it's really painful because then you get a spider. Also, with double Hellfire in Savjz's deck, he can just drop the Nerubian Egg on turn 2 if he wants to, or even turn 3, doesn't matter, and then swipe the board with a Hellfire, just kill everything, and as a bonus, just get this 4/4 creature that will be able to trade or just push with damage, because Handlock is not only about board control, Handlock is also about dealing damage, and cards like Nerubian Egg, Hellfire, whatever you play, like Ancient Watcher being silenced, they are able to push with damage for the final touch with Leroy Faceless or just Leroy Power Overwhelming. Power Overwhelming also works with the Nerubian Egg pretty nicely. Sludge Belcher, perfect card on turn 5. Lothep, maybe not that important in this matchup, but I just love this handlock, and I would play it myself as well.
Yeah, I like the...
Originally, Zoo was actually... like for Zoo, Handlock was a bad matchup. Zoo had trouble playing versus Handlock because Zoo is kind of slow with all those small minions with, you know, 1-1-2 or 1-1 into 0-2. So what do you think about it?
Yeah, you know, you make a good point about Hellfire and how it activates the egg, but it also activates your opponent's egg. So as much as Hellfire is great against Zoo, traditionally speaking, you know, Zoo has been able to adopt the new Naxxramas cards to make it more resilient against AoE. So Shadow Flame, Hellfire, these are the staple cards that let you win the game. But now when you have Harvest Golems and Haunted Creepers and Nerubian Eggs on the board to kind of spatter in with things like Knife Juggler, all of a sudden these cards end up, as much as you're trading the board and using Shadow Flame and giving up your board, and normally you can go for a clear, you might be taking the same amount of damage or even more the following turn. So I feel like they lose power, but I think where you kind of make it up is just like you're bringing out like Sludge Belchers. The fact that you can play aggressive with your Watchers. You know, also, again, the Molten Giants are so critical with the taunts. I think, you know, it's really dependent on how Savjz draws in this game. Things like Mountain Giants are the exact opposite of it, because Mountain Giants, you often don't get the chance to play it. You're dumping cards because you're trying to match Zoo card for card. And being able to play a little bit more efficiently with these bigger minions. So Mountain Giant often feels dead.
So those players will face each other to determine the winner who will actually go to the final. But remember, guys, you can be a winner as well because you're watching VGVN Naxxramas tournament. Type giveaway in chat to have a chance and enter to win for our prize.
Whoa, that opening hand from Savjz is, well, it gives him ability to use Soulfires if he can just card, but that's not what you're looking for immediately. Molten Giant does shape it up, though.
You can Soulfire face twice to play a Molten Giant earlier.
Why do you call?
At the risk of discarding your own Molten Giant as well. Love it. It's a Strife Grow play.
Kind of. This lifetime was actually pretty good. Twilight Drake is pretty nice. You want to play Twilight Drake on turn 4. We might actually even play the egg.
Amaz also gets the Doom Guard, and he can squeeze it out pretty early, which is important. Savjz taps, and he gets a Mountain Giant. And again, this is a rare occurrence where the Zoo starts off really slow, and oftentimes, because Savjz had nothing to do but life tap, he's committed to this plan. And, you know, the Mountain Giant does come out, but with Direwolf Alpha and a lot of trades going down, you might not get an effective value out of it. You might just kill a couple of minions and trade Soulfire in.
Amaz's board is so big right now with all those cards, but on the other hand, with Direwolf out of the question, there's only 3 points of damage, and an 8/8 Giant is staring him. So the timing to get that Mountain Giant was so crucial. Savjz can also follow up with a 4/7 Drake. Will it be a 4/7? I just said 4/7, but I actually didn't count it. I feel like it's always.
It seems about right. Yeah, I think it is a 4/7 because you draw the 7th card. I feel kind of silly because I was saying that Mountain Giant often feels dead in this matchup, but it seems like it's at least be able to safely come out here, which is really crucial for Savjz. And you know, I feel like I completely just went backwards, but I stand by what I said. You know, Savjz was able to get this out. Zoo played really slowly. Lots of setup cards like Nerubian Egg, the Haunted Creeper post threats over time, and resilient against AoE. And now, as a result, Handlock's able to kind of take the initiative and put the burden on Amaz to be able to respond.
What do you even do being a Zoo in here? Because that Taunt Giver is coming, so do you try to clear? Oh my god, Iron Beak Owl.
Well, he has Iron Beak Owl and Elven Archer, so that's one way to deal with it really effectively.
On the other hand, you're not dealing that many points of damage, and if there is a board clear coming, if Savjz actually gets something like Hellfire, that will be huge.
Well, Amaz is valuing the Soulfire. He's tapping so that way he has a higher chance to save his Doomguard, so he maybe can play it next in the following turns. Instead of going for Harvest Golem and kind of cutting his losses and accepting Soulfire / Doomguard will be lost.
My shield
Are you going for phase in here? I guess you
I
do.
think so.
9
He has
points of
double
damage.
Molten Giant and Sun Fury Protector, and I think with this kind of combinations, and the fact that he's at low enough health to kind of drop it in the next few turns, Savjz is in a good position to just win this game. Amaz already used his silence. He doesn't
So
run
he-
things like Black Knight. I think Savjz is heavily favored to win it from this point on.
Also, this Nerubian right now is exactly as we talked about. It's a 1-free taunt, which is pretty annoying, and then after you kill it, it's a 4-4 that will help Savjz to push with damage. Being Amaz here, are you thinking about Leroy in the opponent's hand? Because this board is pretty strong. Even if you kill the giant, and if you kill the 1-free, then there will be 6 points of damage. So possible Leroy plus Power Overwhelming and Soulfire is killing you.
Well, he might be able to get some even better juggle. He's been juggling straight to the minions. He needs a little bit more juice, though, because he missed on the Mountain Giant. That would have allowed him to trade and push out this Nerubian egg. Is he tempted to use something like Soulfire and gamble? I don't know. It's going to be really tough. Let's find out what happens, because he might try to use the Nerubian egg as leverage to maybe juggle one more time. If not, he might Soulfire and opt for it first.
He's going for
Oh,
a
he goes
Soulfire.
for the Soulfire, and he doesn't discard the Doomguard, which is really critical. Doomguard might be the way to pressure, but we know Savjz has things like Molten Giants.
And he gets the Leroy. It's... Oh my god, how much... How... Is 1 damage off lethal? Again. Is he? Yes, this is 16 points of damage. But there are the taunts, so it doesn't matter. What do you do being Savjz? Do you just tap and play those Molten Giants earlier? You would probably would like to play both Molten Giants and a taunt.
The consequence is about the same. He can't tap and play both Molten Giants unless he Soulfires himself for a super creative play, and
probably
then goes for double Molten Giant taunt. I think that's a little too risky for me.
I think you have
Yeah.
to play Molten Giant and taunt the 4-4 and the Molten. Kill the 2-2. Do you kill an egg? You probably don't. You just
Nope.
play the Molten Giant. You've seen your opponent struggle to kill the Mountain Giant, so now you
Yep.
play a Molten, you taunt it, and for the next turn he can always play the second Molten Giant and Sludge Belcher,
Yes.
and Soulfire after that to just clear something.
You don't Soulfire the Knife Juggler here?
Do you?
I think you have to. I think you have to Soulfire the Knife Juggler. It represents too much potential damage. We just witnessed what happens if you leave it up and you allow Zoo to tap.
Yeah,
and
but
play
on
live.
the other hand, Zoo has only 2 cards in hand, and I feel like it might be too risky.
Oh,
Actually-
Siphon Soul.
This is perfect for him. I feel like this was the best card to discard.
Yeah, I think I would have been okay with Leroy being discarded either. You don't necessarily need to rush your opponent down. You're playing a really defensive game. Either one of those, as long as you didn't lose maybe Molten Giant or Sludge Belcher.
Well, the thing is that if Molten Giant and a 2-3 survives, you just win next turn. So Leroy is pretty important here. And if your opponent clears, you can still play the Sludge Belcher and the Molten Giant. That's why I feel like Leroy was pretty important.
Amaz has also been valuing the Doomguard so much that the Doomguard might never be played this game. There's a
If he
very
attacks-
realistic possibility.
If Amaz attacks with the egg, that's it.
No, he's not. I don't think you can attack with the egg. You're just asking to get completely destroyed. He's thinking about whether or not to play the Flame Imp, and he's committed to it. That's 12, which, if there's anything that he picks up, Savjz picks up sorry, not Power of the Wind. The Faceless Manipulator, but that's not enough to be able to combo immediately. But guess what? You can put out another 8/8 taunt.
And then just followed up with another 8-8 without taunt, but still pretty strong. Triple
And I
Molten
think
Giant.
Savjz has stabled enough. I was saying how Molten Giants super key in this matchup is as long as you're out of the range where your opponent can just like double Soulfire you for the game. And Amaz is going to be playing Doomguard finally, but it has been very late.
There's
to
like
save
no
the
way.
beast.
A wall of 16 health in those taunts. And then 12 more on hero. This is potentially 28 points of health that you have to... 20 points of damage that you have to deal to win this game.
You have to kill one of these giants, and you have to kind of like wait and see, because if you sacrifice everything to kill this other giant, then you play straight into it, but you're kind of forced to do it anyways. There's no way for him to win this game. Amaz Zoo deck has fallen, and Savjz will take game number 2.
How overwhelming this last final touch. Which doesn't matter because Amaz was dead on board. 10 points of damage into 10 points of health. A tie.
Okay, great.
Oh,
now, Amaz is going to go to his Paladin deck. With equality and Outdoor Peacekeepers, you have ways to control the giants. But look at some of the interesting card choices, Nibsh.
I'm pretty fat. Did I actually say that live? Yeah, there's a lot of cards. I think like Darkwonix would be actually pretty proud of this deck.
Oh, you're reading the deck list name. I was like, well, we could talk about that too. I was like, that's so random. I just noticed that was his deck list name.
Casual chat. Anyways,
Sure.
Ysera, Tyrion, Guardian, Sylvanas, Double Sunwalker, Sludge Belcher, Harrison Jones, Senjin. This deck is pretty fat with all those fatties and will be hard to deal with.
Yeah, the Sarah late game is just one of the best for the sheer card advantage. And if you're able to safely secure it, then you just run away with the game. And this is just like a super controlled deck. You have lots of Taunters, double Senjin, double Belcher, double Sunwalker. I'm surprised he doesn't run Unstable Ghoul, because that's a card that's been seen in lots of play. But you know what? He scaled back some of that early game for even more potent late game. I'm
actually surprised he's not running Gruul with all those big cards, but definitely, yeah. And Savjz, he's Warlock. How does this Warlock actually match up versus this Paladin? I feel it's not that bad with Warlock, because this Paladin is pretty slow. But on the other hand, the Paladin is a good counter to Warlock, kind of, because you have equality, and you have humility, and you have Outdoor Peacekeeper. Oh my god. Those giants with a 1/8 are not that scary anymore.
Yep. The fact that you can shred their damage and use it with Kodo allows you to stabilize the board very effectively. They're often dropping one minion at a time. And, if they drop him like Mountain Giant on turn 4, you just Outdoor Peacekeeper, and the next turn, maybe you have the ability to Kodo it. And then Handlock's just sitting there trying to drop these big minions, and then Paladin answers it, and they have no way to finish other than combo late game. And then they have taunted heals. So Paladin, I feel like, is a really good matchup for it. At the same time, it is a Paladin deck, which makes it a little bit tricky to play. Paladin is exactly the most obvious way to play, unless you're facing a straightforward deck like Zoo, which it becomes really clear. Just stop the damage, clear the board, and then survive with taunts. But when you play like a control mirror, Paladin does become a little bit trickier. And I have to ask a question, like, how practiced is Amaz with Paladin?
That's a very valid question. Also, another problem I can see is that this Paladin, even though it has almost everything, removal, minions, buffs, it doesn't have enough drawing power. You can only draw with Acolyte of Pain and a possible Lay on Hands. So and your opponent will be drawing a lot, like almost every turn. So if Savjz is able to push enough pressure on board with the flow on cards coming all the time, Amaz can just run out of answers somewhere around turn 7.
All right. Well, I'm inclined to agree. I think the Paladin does match up pretty well. At the same time, Savjz does have ways he can give Paladin lots of grief. Twilight Drake is really resilient to things like True Silver Champion, which is a card that usually picks up great value in almost any control matchup, but not really with Handlock if you're able to draw it out early with Twilight Drake and then forcing a taunt on it so that way he can't deal. Interesting that Amaz has opted out of things like Black Knight and include Harrison Jones and Sylvanas as his mid-range legendary creatures to answer to tech cards. You don't really see it that often because Sylvanas does tend to be a little bit weird sometimes with things like Equality and Pyromancer and some of those weird synergies, but yeah, maybe it works out for him.
Amaz definitely loves Sylvanas. And now we can see what's going with the mulligan. Savjz mulliganing his whole hand and Amaz on the coin. He has Acolyte of Pain, which is crucial because we just stated that draw is very important with the Paladin not having many cards. That Acolyte of Pain will be able to give him a couple of cards, even if he gets only one card, that's still important.
I think it's okay though, because Paladin's rarely playing things early, so you're stacking cards. You know, Acolyte often gets silenced too by something like Ironbeak, and he does have the ability to just play things pretty slow. So I think the Acolyte is important, like you mentioned, but having something like double quality in hand and Consecration to answer a big board, I feel like it's even more important.
Oh yeah, definitely. And having both of them at the same time is so good. Being Savjz in here, are you happy with that? Life
Well,
tap
you
into
know,
egg.
he didn't have the opportunity to play something on turn 4, so he soul fired and tried to tap more rather to prevent overdraw. But I think he was not hoping to lose the Sludge Belcher. That's a great mid-range creature to draw, once again, things like Truce over Champion and make it really difficult for Paladin.
I think I would be more sad if I would actually lose Faceless. Because playing versus Paladin, I would rely on a combo somehow. I want to have Faceless, Power, Leroy. Because it's super hard to get Paladin really low. But on the other hand, you can outdraw Paladin with life tap. So if you're able to like fight for the board, maybe just deal those 10 points of damage after some heals, get them to 20, and then in one turn, just finish them off with a 20 points of damage, power overwhelming Leroy Faces combo.
Ah. Well, this is a very situational hand from Savjz. A lot of things are kind of responding to the minions being played, or it's kind of an AoE clear of some sort. So he's just going to have to be resourceful and use Defender of Argus right here to try to hope to taunt an activation of the egg, assuming his opponent doesn't have a way of silence and deal with it immediately. But one thing that's really difficult to kind of swallow is that True Silver Champion is often a perfect response to Nerubian egg. You just kill it off, you just kill off the 4/4, and then there's no threat whatsoever.
Yeah, it's a funny situation because basically you would think, hey, Nerubian Egg is pretty good versus Paladin because I can put it and it's kind of canceling the Consecration. Because if they use Consecration, then I get them a 4/4 Nerubian, but on the other hand, if they have True Silver Champion, it's looking bad. By the way, I think the key question, Black Knight is so powerful in here, but the key question is, who's winning at the stall game?
The Paladin wins at the stall game for sure with cards like Ysera, and you have the quality Consecrate to kind of reset. Tyrion, Guardian of Kings, Sylvanas, even Lothab to really disrupt the longer the game goes, I think Paladin's favored.
Oh my god, this board is getting equality Consecration. And Amaz is double equality, double Consecration. This is so ridiculous. That Harrison Jones will be useless. But you never know. Maybe there's a Jaraxxus in your opponent's... Wait, he's actually not clearing the board? He's playing Harrison Jones? That's bold.
Well, I like saving equality as kind of the fail-safe against what your opponents do. I think he also coins out Peacekeeper here. Oh, wow. Okay, he's going to go for the coin. Really? Then Harrison Jones gets traded pretty easily or even dies to something really simple like a Hellfire with the Defender of Argus. And then you pretty much lose everything, and then you start getting smacked for damage. I'm not sure if I like this play by Amaz, but I think he wants to be really resourceful against Giants. Because one thing that Savjz has also done is he hasn't shown any threats. So I think Amaz feels really insecure to like drop the Peacekeeper immediately. But I guess Peacekeeper also plays into Hellfire anyways, in which case he's going to lose value. So I think Amaz is playing, again, very conservative resources, realizing that he wants to use these things on the Giants and the Twilight Drakes.
Yeah, I certainly agree. It's the Harrison Jones play was just, hey, I can use those cards to just clear the board because I'm playing this whole game. So use the cards that are kind of useless to clear the board, and it worked. He did clear the board, and he still has the double combo with Equality Consecration. So whatever comes, he can still clear.
Hold on.
And he's...
One sec. Savjz has Leroy and Faceless. His opponents have 15 health. He might not need to use something like board position to win the game if he just wins from the damage in hand.
The combo is so important. And he actually has an Iron Beak as well.
Yes.
But he won't be able to play it, everything on one turn. Molten Giants.
Ooh. How does he deceptively set up a lethal so that way he can hide his information, that the fact that he has 12 damage from hand, and then combine it so that way he has an ability to just lethal from hand without giving Amaz an ability to just impose directly. It's a little tricky. He's going to try to set it up so that way he has something on board. Maybe has removal, but if he draws into Power Overwhelming, this game's over.
Or Soulfire. But still, he doesn't have lethal yet, and I really like the silence on Sludge Belcher because Sludge Belcher with Equality Consecration, it clears the board, and you get a 1/2 as a prize. I mean, like, oh my god, not even Consecration. It's like I was thinking Equality Pyromancer. With Consecration, it's even better.
Yeah, you know, I think you can get away with this play too. He is going to use Holy Light, by the way, very intelligently, realizing he might be in combo range. And he's going to put himself out, forcing him to have Soulfire on top of the full combo. And he's okay with his opponent playing a Molten Giant because he has second equality, as well as Kodo and the Peacekeeper.
You probably Siphon Soul this 3-1. But you first play the Molten. And I would definitely play in the Rubian Egg as well. Do you tap? This is so ballsy.
Mortal Coil.
YOLO tap?
It makes sense. You don't have a Taunt Giver. Wow. Okay. And now, you know, Kodo does become a little bit of a gamble, but you do have True Silver Champion to rebound. And, you know, Savjz is also playing with the knowledge that Paladin generally doesn't have the ability to burst. Even for 9, it's a little bit stretching for Paladin to be able to end the game like this.
Yeah, how do you even deal that 5 points of damage with Paladin? Normally, you deal surprise damage with True Silver, but True Silver is already played. Is he going for the Kodo play?
Either outcome is kind of acceptable because you do have True Silver and you have ways to heal, so I think Kodo does come out here. You're hoping for the Molten Giant, which would be really nice. And he gets it because if he had the ability to silence it, maybe he could have gotten that 8 damage back and started doing big deeps.
That's a must for you. Another Molten Giant is pretty nice. Do you Hellfire first? Do you even Hellfire at all?
Hellfire activates the Nerubian, but you put yourself at 6 health.
Okay, so we established that Paladin has a problem to deal 5 points of damage. What about dealing 1 point of damage? Is it hard as well? So if you Hellfire...
No, they have Consecration. They can end the game too.
Oh yeah, you're right. It's like 1/2 is not a problem because of the Consecration. So you probably don't Hellfire here.
Most likely not. Savjz also saw like another Peacekeeper and Kodo, so he realized that's another form of removal being pushed out. He really hopes his opponent doesn't have another equality. That would totally suck. But if he does, he can go for a Faceless play to be really defensive. Or he can save Faceless for the potential to kill his opponent if he draws into Power Overwhelming.
This is so hard for Savjz. It's a very hard decision because you've seen 1 Equality Consecration. Your opponent has only 3 cards. What would you expect? Do you think they'll have another combo?
Oh
my god.
Overwhelming. That gives him the full combo, but does he have the luxury of being able to do all this damage if Paladin heals up? If Amaz just uses Lay on Hands, then he's not even in range for combo anymore.
Well, right now Savjz has a potential 22 points of damage out of nowhere.
Yeah, you definitely Lay on Hands. You have nothing else to do. Kodo on this board feels super weak. He's going to continue to draw through. He gets Pyromancer and Equality with Consecration combo, so lots of ways to clear the board.
Savjz has the combo, but he's short on lethal. Even though he can deal 20 points of damage, it's still not enough.
Even if he draws Soulfire, it's still not enough.
Molten Giant is pretty nice.
That's not bad. But again, you're careful not to overextend into something like the Equality, so you don't want to tap and then put yourself at risk to just get Equality consecrated and the game ends.
Yeah, you don't tap, you just trade, but still, like, Mountain Giant is a pretty nice pickup because without the Mountain Giant, what else could you do? It's like nothing you could play.
I got this.
You definitely trade with 7 points of life. Oh my god.
Pyromancer represents clears. And Maz is still, right now, I think 1 damage off of lethal. And fortunately for the Paladin, it's really difficult to pair together that 1 extra damage.
You kind of want to play the Pyromancer and deal that 1 more damage, but it's only to minions.
Sylvanas top deck is great against something like the Giants if you're able to immediately kill it. It's a little tricky how you pair things together because now that the Mountain Giant is here, you feel like your opponent, if he has combo, which is starting to get likely, Savjz only has 7 cards left, so there's a high probability that he has the combo by now. That Giant can also be the way to represent lethal for Savjz.
If Savjz has the full combo with a Soulfire, then with the Giant, it's lethal. But how many assumptions can you make? Like, there's 6 cards. What's the chance of having all the pieces in your hand?
Your opponent only has 7, or he'll have 6 cards left in his deck. He drew through 24 of them, and he needs 4 cards.
But we've seen one Soulfire before.
Right. But he also hasn't played second one. I mean, it's all about whether or not you want to take that chance.
Wait, what is going on?
And he's gonna do it. And Soulfire off the top means it's game.
Lothab. Oh my god, Lothab is actually a pretty interesting card in here.
No, but Lothab means you lose, I think. Because then he just pushes through anyways, and he just kills you. Like, Consecration just costs 9 mana, but that doesn't matter.
Wait, is Savjz dead to that 1/1 token, actually?
No, the 1/1 token is a little inconsequential because you just push through with 2 silver and then you consecrate with Sylvanas. Savjz is gonna go for a Sylvanas play though. He can use Shadow Flame or Power of the Whelming and try to take his opponent's Sylvanas and play it. He's gonna give up his combo, but I think he's playing for survival. He can silence his opponent's Sylvanas as well. This is starting to get a little tricky because he doesn't have the mana to do everything.
That 1/1 token is pretty important, by the way. If you play Lothab and kill and silence Sylvanas, and then kill Sylvanas with an 8/8, that 1/1 token will be the one last damage that Amaz needed to finish the game.
Wow, so he does take the Sylvanas, use the Power of Overwhelming, and play the control game. And again, Amaz is still just... He's so irritated the fact that you can't do that 1 extra damage as the Paladin. He's just gonna go for it, at least in terms of using the Choose Silver, and then start playing the board to try and clear for it, because he realizes Sylvanas and Mountain Giant represent way too much at this point.
I think this is the best game with 1 damage of lethal we had in this tournament. He was 1 damage of lethal for 3 turns. Now he's missing a bit more, but he's out of cards.
So Savjz draws the Soulfire just a little bit too late. He had the ability. And now be careful where you point that, Savjz.
He's just frustrated because
that's
it was
a
the card
loaded gun at this point.
Yeah, now the combo's out.
Just make sure the safety's on when you're pointing that thing. It's a little scary.
1 turn too late.
If Savjz is kind of in tune with what the game is, though, and he's not tilted off the fact that Soulfire was 1 card off from being able to end the game, then he knows both True Silvers have been used, so the only way his opponent can burst is if he's playing something like Avenging Wrath. He's gonna tap. Oh yeah, no, that tap actually has costed him the game, I think.
I don't feel like there was anything else he could actually do. It's just...
Well, the way he needed to survive was actually just to play Lothab and play Ironbeak Owl. But I think you're right, because as much as he can survive, Paladin has outlasted the handlock. Like, there's nothing that he can actually do to win anymore. He's lost his combo potential, and that was his one ability to come back in the game.
I will definitely Hellfire and Soulfire my face. To just
with your 3 mana.
Send a message. Well, not now, but like in general.
Alright, well, this is it, and Amaz has outlasted the handlock. This was a tough matchup for handlock in general.
That consecration for 9 mana, finishing the game. Pretty sick. That's the value. Doesn't matter how expensive it is if you win the game with it.
Not bad, not bad. And the Paladin strikes back, again, showing its worth in the tournament recently, thanks to Naxxramas and a diversity introduced with a ban/veto system. Savjz is going to turn around and play his Shaman deck in response to the Paladin.
It was so close, though. It felt like Amaz really did run out of cards, but it was so close, and he had the exact card, the exact moments. He had double combo. He had that Acolyte of Pain. So it was pretty good for Amaz there. The Shaman now. I feel like Paladin is pretty good versus Shaman with all those clears. Consecration, Equality, Pyromancer. Shaman fights for board control. They want to have as many minions as possible. And Paladin is the best minion killer that I know.
Right. You're right. And in fact, I think because Savjz realizes Hunter's his last deck, and he doesn't want to, like, the Hunter against Paladin also feels pretty weak. Amaz is looking favored right now to end this series very soon. Because
Paladin
Paladin
is an
is such a
MVP.
problem.
Paladin being the MVP of this tournament, and again, it proves to be a very hard deck to beat. So I'm really excited to see Savjz try to beat Paladin with the Shaman deck. So let's look at the Shaman deck that Savjz is actually playing here. What's important? What's different? It feels like a standard list with both Alakir and Doomhammer. I guess. Wait. There are no Haunted Creepers. He's actually not playing the Creepers, which might be important with because the Creeper with the Devil is actually able to survive a lot. So now with only the Nerubian Egg, no Creepers, he has double Defender Vargas. Wait, is there anything different about this deck? He is running Lothep, but other than that, it's a standard deck, I guess.
Well, yeah, the Nerubian Egg and Lotheb are the only Naxxramas cards that I see. And other than that, I feel like Savjz doesn't want to mess with the winning formula. Shaman has great tools, removal. I don't think the Baron Rivendare and the reincarnate combos are still figured out yet completely. I think when Naxxramas comes out in its entirety, maybe you can kind of make a complete Death Rattle deck with a lot of what Shaman has, Ancestral Spirits, the Undertaker, you name it. Maybe he can kind of piece it together. That would be really cool. But for now, Savjz has kind of gone through the route saying, I'm just going to play Shaman for what it's known for, getting good value spells, playing powerful minions like Fire Elemental, Azure Drake to kind of combo with your removal, and then to try to just go for board control. Meanwhile, it's interesting because Paladin has been performing so well, and people are saying that with Paladin's new Naxxramas card, Avenge, it's a secret that just gives one of your minions a random buff when a minion dies. Like, that is not what people thought that Paladin needed. They're like, whoa, Paladin just gets screwed in Naxxramas, and Uther's crying somewhere. They're just, like, photoshopping all these memes and stuff. But it turns out Paladin's actually just fine, because things like the Haunted Creeper, Unstable Ghoul has shored up that's early game. Belcher's come to the mid-game and give it that mid-game taunt presence that's really important. And it's interesting. Yeah, Lotheb. I can't believe Paladin's actually able to do this well with just 3 wings of Naxxramas out.
Also, one more thing about Savjz the Shaman. There is a saying that if you don't know what to play, you play what you know. So coming into this tournament with such a great price against such great players, instead of just taking a deck that you are not comfortable playing with new cards, new combos, not enough time to actually practice this deck versus all the metagame, you just take something really stable that you know how to play. You played many games with it. You just maybe tweak it a bit with the Nerubian Egg and Lothep, the deck and how the deck is being run didn't change much. So just bring it so you're fully prepared coming into the game and into the match versus players like Amaz.
All right, the game has started. Savjz is going to start on the coin, which might make you feel uncomfortable, Nimsh, but generally speaking, I feel like starting with the extra mana as Paladin is also really important, because that way you're able to play your threats out really nicely. I just like being a little bit ahead of the curve as a Paladin player.
So here you'd like to have a coin as a Paladin, right?
Against shot. Oh, I like being able to have a mana ahead, because then.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Because
Really?
if it's a control matchup, you have that extra mana every single time.
So it's like they play Thorough Spirit on turn 3, and you play True Silver on your turn 4 because you have initiative. Like you have this 1 extra mana crystal each turn.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, so are you saying you have a coin each turn instead of just having a coin for 1 turn?
Definitely. It's like you play Wild Growth turn 1, you're able to play a little bit faster than your opponent. Amaz, by the way, will see that Savjz has a great start. This is what you want as Shaman. Coin on Unbound into the Feral Wolves, and then get a 3-5. But, you know, the True Silver is a good start as well. you're able to kind of respond to whatever your opponent does. Now, I like what you were saying before. The AoE clears from Paladin. The fact that Shaman can't really ever utilize their burst effectively because you're able to heal up out of range. It's going to be harassing the Shaman a lot. But at the same time, Savjz has ways to clear his opponent's board too, so Paladin doesn't have the exact easiest time setting up.
It's pretty important how Savjz actually played this turn. Instead of just attacking with a 3-4 into Harvest Golem and then finishing it off with a Feral Spirit and toteming up, that will actually open Savjz for a full Consecration swipe. But here, this True Silver is pretty useless against those wolves. It's like a card for card, because Feral Spirit is just double wolves, but it was one card, and True Silver also. So it was a good trade for Savjz, I believe.
I guess the one other way to look at it is that you at least earn back 1 mana, because Feral Spirits costed 5 versus the True Silver costed 4. So even though you did lose the value of going 2 for 1 with cards, at least you're up in mana.
Agreed. Also here, do you play Flametongue Totem? Or you just clear?
You don't have to. There's not that many strong minions yet. And, well, he did lose the ability to drop his Azure Drake the following turn. Oh, sorry, never mind. He was on 5 mana this turn. I misread that completely. So I think Flametongue Totem, you don't have to. You're just usually there to kind of surprise your opponent. If you drop the Flametongue Totem, then he's more inclined to just use removal immediately.
I like how this Unveiled Elemental is actually growing. Even though the attack of Unveiled Elemental was reduced, it still has potential to grow. And Sunwalker, well, it's an important card. It can trade really well with that 4/4.
Yeah,
So
these guys
now-
are playing pretty quickly, but I think Amaz is doing a good job stabilizing the board. His big minions will be able to continue to trade with whatever comes out, and you want to get ahead, because then you start hero powering and then using your hero powers to effectively take out the totems, and Shaman just never has a board.
So let's put things into perspective. From Amaz's side, the game plan is pretty easy. You just want to trade every minion. You just want to kill everything. You want to set up a big board with those cards like Sunwalkers, Guardians, Guardian of Kings, and Loatheb at a key turn. It looks pretty good, because then you just swipe the board with all the stuff you have and you win. Being Savjz, how do you win this game? You're fighting the board game, but you have worse minions, kind of. You don't have that many board wipes. Well, he had Lightning Storm, and he has a second one, so that might be good. But looking at those hands, Amaz's hand looks great, and Savjz's hand looks kind of weird.
Well, you win by gaining value and tempo, and then you burst your opponent with things like Doomhammer and Alakir. But Savjz doesn't have a clear game plan, and one thing that he's been struggling with is finding a way to consistently replenish his hand. And if he doesn't draw into things like Hex, he might have to just use minions to remove and give up his board a lot. Like, the Sylvanas does introduce kind of a conundrum, because he doesn't want to give up his Nerubian Egg. He needs to kind of find Hex right now, but he doesn't have it.
Fire Elemental would be just perfect if not for the Sylvanas. Actually, can he play the Fire Elemental even to just deal some damage and then be able to trade? So, the ways, if you don't have a Hex, another way to deal with Sylvanas is just spawn the board with small minions. But again, you're facing Paladin with a lot of clears, with Pyromancer Equality. You've seen one Consecration already, but it's hard to say if he's able to clear the board. And also, just by playing all those cards, you're giving a clear signal, hey, I don't have a Hex. I have a problem.
That's right. And that gives your opponent the ability to leverage that if they have something like Faceless or whatnot to continue to compound. In fact, does this feel like you can drop Loatheb in response, because then your opponent can't play Hex even if he draws it? Or if it does, it takes up his entire turn. I like it. I think Loatheb does come down here, maybe, if you want to build your board a little bit.
Maybe even Doubles Engine. Why do you like Loatheb here, by the way? It's like, okay, so there is no Hex, and your opponent actually got 2 cards, one from Thalnos, one at the beginning of turn. But still, this Loatheb helps with this turn, but on the other hand, it doesn't change the board situation that much. It's like, it doesn't push the game for you. Like, you're not going to win next turn. It's just denying your opponent the spells for 1 turn. But what would you expect? The Hex? Really? Like, Hex didn't come last turn. Lightning. You're playing around Lightning Storm, kind of with Lothab, I guess. Lightning Storm
Well,
won't come this turn.
Lothab doesn't have to be a seal the win condition. It can also be a develop the board, where you're able to just push out really strong minions and then get really strong trades. Just look at the state of the board for Shaman. It's pretty weak. It needs like Flame Tongue Totems to really pick up a lot of value, which Amaz isn't sure if his opponent has or not. By the way, Black Knight on this Senjin is going to make Amaz feel much better about dropping Sunwalker, but I think Savjz can't pick up that, can't pass up that value to build up a board like this.
Kodo. It's pretty weird also because Amaz won't be able to play all the cards at the same turn. He will be able to play Sunwalker and Senjin at the same turn, but he's actually not going for it.
Okay, he's still getting mileage out of this Sylvanas. As long as the opponent doesn't draw into Hex or Urshock, I think it's still good.
Oh my god, Alakir, double Flame Tongue Elemental. But this Alakir feels so weird right now. You would love to drop it and just win the board. But because of Sylvanas, the risk is just too high. And now also your Nerubian Egg, it's kind of troublesome.
The Nerubian was played before Sylvanas, right? So if they traded into each other, then there is a chance to steal the Nerubian.
Yeah.
Okay, just so we're clear on that. He still hasn't drawn something like his Hex. He might have to use Lightning Storm here and try to do what he can. Maybe he has a 50-50 to take the Healing Totem. I think that's his best shot. He's going to go for it. He also wants to roll high on Lothab. Oh, he doesn't. But he at least gains back the Healing Totem. And at least he's also able to activate the Nerubian.
This was a nice swap of the game. Right now, he has the 4/4, and it's a strong 4/4. Then again, he's free of Sylvanas, and he gets a Hex that will be very valuable later.
Now, how do you go about this? Your opponent again has kind of reset most of your board. The Senjin is challenging the Nerubian enough that you can't push through easily. But Flame Tongue Totem feels so vulnerable if you just drop it.
Well, you can just ignore the Flame Tongue, I guess. You can Fire Elemental the Senjin, kill the Senjin with 4/4, and then just totem up.
The Taunt Totem is
really
very
nice.
good. That's excellent. Amaz does have Lay on Hand, so he can keep the throttle or the gas going and be able to win the late game battle. And if he baits out things like Hex, Ysera is going to ruin the Shaman's day. But some of the best cards from Savjz are yet to pop out with the Fire Elemental and Alakir waiting to pop onto the board and destroy everything that Amaz plays.
Well, I guess you probably don't Lay on Hands in here because you're losing on board. And if you just play Lay on Hands, there is nothing happening. You just get damage anyway. So you just waste your heal to draw a couple of cards, just lose your whole turn, and then you get a lot of damage back. But if you play Sunwalker here, it's also bad. And you have to be mindful of those hexes. Like, you haven't seen a hex before, but now it's a couple of more cards from your opponent. Doomhammer.
This is where, by the way, showing the case where if you can kind of get ahead of your opponent on board and start using hero power before you actually need to use them, then you're in a good position. Because if Amaz had an extra token, he'd be able to take out that Nerubian.
I wonder if you drop a Hex and a Doomfire here. A Doomhammer. It's like 8 mana, then you're overloaded for 3 more. So next turn you will have to drop the Fire Elemental. But then the Doomhammer will be doing work for a couple of turns. But Amaz actually has a Harrison Jones, and you know this.
That's what I was about to say. You realize what happens as soon as Savjz plays Doomhammer. Amaz is going to top deck the Harrison Jones and draw 6 cards.
Yeah. We've seen this happen at DreamHack when Reels played Doomhammer. Then immediately Amaz actually got a Harrison Jones. Yesterday, we've seen Harrison Jones being used 3 times to destroy the Doomhammer. So the games were pretty swingy.
All right, well, Savjz is going to go for it and really cross his fingers that his opponent doesn't have Harrison Jones. Attacking the totem, attacking the 1/1. Either's kind of okay because they both play into the border control state. Savjz kind of making a decision though. Oh, he's attacking into the Kodo immediately so they can get a trade.
This is not Harrison Jones. This is a second sludge belcher. Amaz is going for Harrison Jones' draw. He gets it.
Well,
Oh my god, he gets
He
it.
has arrived, so he's gonna draw 4 cards off of it. And I think the heal overkill was fine because he was running low on cards anyways.
So do you equality here to kill the 6-2?
The quality feels like such a waste at that stage.
It's wow. It's a two mana card that actually deals with the 6 mana card. So you prevent you just kill a big minion and also you prevent 6 points of damage. So it's not that bad.
Do you really care about that little damage though? I don't know because equality is one of your best ways to deal with what the board presents from this point on. Because then you know Savjz hasn't played some of his biggest minions. I can understand why you play it here if you wanted effectively gain health, but equality is also one of the best removal cards because of how much damage it does on the board. If there's 4 minions, you might do like 8 to 10 points of damage, and now you used equality to do 1 damage. That was like an elven archer.
So the thing is, like, you are potentially going to, for sure, you're dropping Harrison Jones next turn, and you will be drawing 4 more cards.
Oh yes, baby. That Doomhammer belongs in a museum, and Amaz is gonna draw out almost the rest of his deck. Like, he's not gonna be having many cards after this.
He has everything. Outdoor Peacekeeper is pretty important.
And that's a way to potentially swing it back because, we're realizing that Savjz doesn't have that much damage left in his deck after this Alec here.
Man, I would never play the Doomhammer playing versus those decks. Like, everybody's running Harrison Jones now. I feel like this is the moment where you should definitely cut the Doomhammer out of your deck.
Yeah, and the fact that Paladin's making a rotation back in, Harrison Jones usually picks up value against Warrior, Rogue, the Paladin, and even the Shaman against the Doomhammer, which has been the biggest swing by far. Flame Tongue Totem picking up some value and going for some trades. Savjz needs to draw back into the game, and that's where things like Mana Tide Totem is super crucial for the control battles.
But on the other hand, your opponent has 8 cards. This is so insane. That Hex, by the way, will be so important. It's so good to have that Hex for anything Amaz plays, anything that's big. Might get hexed. But on the other hand, Amaz has a sick play with like just a Kodo. Do you play Kodo and Belcher here? Or do you try to clear Pyromancer Consecration clears the board? So attack with a token, Pyromancer, Consecration, and then you have still 4 more points of mana. You can play Harvest Golem. I feel it
seems like a solid play, and it challenges whatever comes out too. So this is kind of like the value play immediately. You're not trying to extend into things like Hex so that your opponent gets ahead on board. You're dealing with the Mana Tide Totem, so you're up on the card advantage, and whatever he totems out, the Harvest Golem can kill. So I think it's a solid play. He's used both Fire Elementals, so he's starting to run low on threats.
There is a lot of Azure Drake is actually pretty good to get a card to just try to replenish your hand. Now this will be a fight for a battle of attrition, a war of attrition between those cards. Removal cards, minion cards. Who comes on top? Who will have the last say? Who will have this last minion to play with your opponent not having any removal cards to actually deal with it? And looks like Amaz has an edge in here.
He does. Eventually, Savjz will run out of threats. He probably has to Hex here, unless he draws something better.
I think you have to Hex. Like, what else can you do? There is no way to pop the shield. And you know that the Tyrion is probably coming soon.
What also stinks if you Hex and you play Unbound because you don't have anything else, then that's going to get Kodoed. And Amaz is going to be having to play value soon, too. I mean, he's got to piece together a win because he's running low on cards, but he still has Ysera and Tyrion. The best is yet to come for him.
Do you Unbound plus Defender of Argus to kind of like not get Kodo and also force your opponent to attack the Unbound with the Harvest Golem and True Silver. But then again, Akodo still drops and kills the 2-3 Defender Vargas.
I mean, we know that's the correct play because that's what he has to do from this point on. But at the same time, it's not as obvious as it is. I mean, he's gonna even leave his Unbound because he can't have the mana to play everything and play Defender Vargas maybe to challenge.
Savjz is running out of options here. And Amaz comfortably sitting on so many cards, and he gets Ysera even.
Now, which legendary do you value more, Tyrion or Ysera? Because you realize at this stage, Hex, you value Ysera more?
I definitely play Ysera here because the board, there's nothing on board. It's like playing Ysera on an empty board, and I've just seen one Hex. So I play Ysera, I get immediate value. If Ysera stays, that's so good. If it's Hexed, I have a Tyrion, I'm like, okay, let's do this. Tyrion can still get an Airshock, by the way. But still, it's a 6/6 after that.
Yeah, I was just asking, like, which one do you like personally to throw out first, but also to save in this situation where your opponent does have the removal. Amaz top deck's a quality. He's still in a decent position because he has the big game threats. Even though he's coming up on fatigue, I still feel like he's in a prime position to end this game and jump out to a 3-1 lead. The Kodo, either target is preferable. Although
Kodo
I think
Vulture, so nice. This board is so powerful.
His opponent has used both Lightning Storms. Ysera's starting to rack in the cards, so even though he's hitting fatigue, he's still gonna have plenty of ways. In fact, he might be looking at a way to win next turn. Let's see.
Oh my god, there is a double Rockbiter and Alakir, but this 1/2 token is just staring at the Alakir and saying, hey, you are not going through me. Amaz is out of cards!
Yes, the one way that maybe he can climb back is if Savjz runs out of, or if Amaz runs out of taunts, and Savjz has a way to burst through and let Fatigue plus Alakir combo for 18 damage end the game. I think that's his game plan from this point on, but can he survive and hold on that long? Because Ysera is building up the card count so that way he can end the game. Nightmare sits in his hand, and now Tyrion threatened to come out.
Well, I would definitely play Tyrion. Like, what's your opponent going to have? There are no ways.
He is playing so safe. Amaz does not want to throw this game at all, although I don't know what kind of combinations his opponent could have that might throw the game anyways.
And that's it. Next turn, Amaz is lethal with the Nightmare. So even though Savjz has a Dream Hand, kind of.
Shock. Yeah, he has a way to kind of get the Alakir going and do crazy damage, but he's got nothing else.
So I guess, well, you don't even play Alakir in here. It's just
now, how does Amaz end the game? He has to end the game with Flash and Pizzazz. Oh no, he's just going for it. A clean kill. That is a 1 out of 10 BM if I've ever seen one. The potential you could have done.
Amaz is not the kind of person that actually BMs his opponents. Also, definitely not BM his teammate and his new teammate. So it would be so weird if, like, after Savjz joining the team a couple of days ago, Amaz will be the one wrecking him and BMing him. It's like, hey, I will show you my superiority here. So a really polite finish from Amaz, but a really splendid win on the other hand. And Savjz is down to his Hunter deck. That's the last deck he has, and that's a deck that he's actually using a lot. And he was able to show his skills with this deck. So for all the people who just joined, Savjz is a master of Hunter. He was able to 4-0 Reynad. He was able to win 2P tournament with a Hunter. So this is one of the decks he knows best. And this is a deck that can potentially 3-0 Amaz. And this is exactly what he needs to do to win the series.
But I feel like Paladin is just such a good pick when you don't have to worry about Rogue or Zoo. Because, again, of how it matches up against everything, all these combos get stopped by taunts and heals. All the really intimidating big threats get dealt with by Peacekeeper and Humility, as well as Kodo combos. And if you flood the board and they get AoE, they can't do anything because equality keeps everything in check. And the fact that if your opponent plays faster with things like Zoo and Rogue, you do die if they squeeze into that window, but if they don't, you also have a chance to beat that too. Paladin is a force to be reckoned with, And I think based off his performance in this tournament, you're going to be seeing it more often on ladder. Paladin and Hunter are like the in thing to do right now.
I certainly agree. I like both builds of Amaz and build and Reels. Those Paladin decks are so amazing, and especially for King of the Hill. A lot of people ask me, do I feel like this deck is good for ladder? It's hard to say, but for sure, a lot of people, exactly as Froden said, will be playing this deck and testing it out because it feels like this deck is invincible. You're able to stop the early game from your opponent with all those clears. You're able to stabilize mid game with all the strong minions like Kodo, Sunwalker, Sylvanas, and then you have a strong end game with Ysera, Tyrion, and Lay on Hands. So on paper, it looks kind of like an invincible deck. So how does Hunter even win? Just burst, I guess.
Well, Hunter wins. The Hunter wins by curving really well, and the fact that it can go even. And then if your opponent, if you can get in bait out removal ahead of time, and they don't have answers to things like high main, then you just overwhelm them the same way you overwhelm any other deck. Curve is important. In fact, I think getting good unleash value also is important too if your opponent starts hero powering a lot. But most likely, if Amaz is kind of tuned into how to play this matchup really well, you avoid hero powering. You drop things like Senjin, and even if you have 6 mana, you usually don't hero power unless you're afraid of something like Deadly Shot.
So right here, right now, Savjz with his last deck, with his back to the wall, we're watching Video Game Voters Network Tournament, the Naxxramas release one. If you guys want to win as well, you can take part in the giveaway. And guys, do we win? Do we win?
Not yet if you're an Amaz fanboy, but soon. He's on the verge of going to the grand finals. Yet another tournament where Amaz will be going all the way, at least to the top 2. And then again, he did falter a little bit recently with WC and early exit. But here he's back at it to go all the way. And, the group stage, it looked like Amaz might be on the verge of elimination. Maybe 6-0 was the one to push through. But Amaz, again, showing why he has the chops to be called one of the best players in the world. And I don't really know what he's really planning here because I think, the Paladin is great, but even so, he might have Priest, and Priest can also handle Hunter decently well with all the heals. Holy Fire keeps you in range of, or out of range rather, of a lot of the burst, and you have ways to answer it. So I think Amaz feels super comfortable. And if you always have Priest as Amaz, and you just have to win one more game, I think he feels really confident.
And the game has started with Savjz on a coin with his Hunter deck, Amaz, Harvest Golem, and a Mulligan.
Oh man, Harvest Golem. By the way, I think having a curve is really important too for the Paladin because most likely you'll see things like Web Spinner and the Haunted Creepers, etc. from your opponent. So Amaz will also have to curve really nicely, which looks like he has Harvest Golem, Senjin Shieldmaster, and Sludge Belcher. That's a pretty good 3-4-5 turn, probably the best.
Savjz picks up a Haunted Creeper, which is really important because his hand with just Explosive Trap, Double Key Command didn't look that good. But if Savjz is going to draw a couple of good cards, he needs to draw into like Animal Companion and some mid-game stuff. Those kill commands can prove to be lethal for Amaz. But on the other hand, if Savjz is forced to use them as removal cards, this will only help Amaz in the mid-game stage.
This is something that happens too. If like Savjz draws into Hunter's marks for the next couple of turns and nothing really substantial, then this happens every so often as a Hunter deck too, where it's kind of like not drawing the Gadget Stand for Miracle Rogue. There's just like nothing for you to do. You just have spells and ways to kind of get synergy of stuff. And your Unleash the Hounds feels really weak, just like your preparations feel really weak. And then sometimes you just lose. This is also right now in danger of what happening because Savjz doesn't have a clear roadmap for the next few turns.
Oh yeah, definitely. He needs the buzzard, kind of. Right now, Amaz only has 2 minions, but I feel like playing a third minion is pretty good anyway. So if Savjz is able to pick up that buzzard, he might be able to change his hand because right now it doesn't look that good.
No, especially if your opponent's using the Eagle Horn Bow to half remove what you have. I think Amaz should take this as a sign of weakness and continue to press. And Paladin has such a great curve, like Sylvanas and Lotheb to seal the game, Consecration for an inevitable buzzer turn. Savjz needs to pick up something big. He has tracking, that gives him the ability to select something nice, and he is halfway through his deck, but the first 4 turns have been pretty weak on Savjz's end.
By the way, those golden cards that Amaz is running, they look so good. Animated Sylvanas, animated Lothab, Consecration. Pretty sick.
Is the Acolyte on fire?
Acolyte is in pain. That's
Yeah,
something
but
I know
is
for
he in
sure.
pain from burning himself?
Maybe. Holy Light is... There is a lot of light on that card. So Savjz is tracking right now. We unfortunately can't see the POV, but definitely if there is a buzzard, he would pick one. So I'd say there is none. Leroy, oh my god, this is a lot of burst now. With Leroy, Unleash the Hounds, double command.
But he needs something as a solid foundation. Looks like he's gonna play the explosive trap first, and try to see if he can get some extra damage, and then use the explosive trap damage to also kill off the Sludge Belcher. But still, he still has nothing to kind of ground his damage. There's nothing kind of squeezing in. He might have had a hard trouble picking between things like a Houndmaster as well, which would synergize great with what he has, but no Buzzard once again. But even so, Lothab is out to deny the ability to play Unleash.
It's pretty important, I think, that right now Amaz doesn't have the Sunwalkers. So like turn 7, he won't be able to play it on. But on the other hand, he has the Holy Light, so it's so tough for the Paladin. Basically, this matchup, sometimes it's so tough because being a hunter, you just deal with the board, with the Senjis.
Oh no, he has Harrison Jones to take away the weapon. I think if Savjz doesn't pick up something substantial, say he gets like Leok with Animal Companion and he has no way to draw Buzzard, this game is over. There's zero way for him to come back because his hand is so situational. And it's not useful. In fact, he doesn't even have Hunter's Mark for like a clear, efficient removal. He picks up Stone Tusk Boar.
He has 10 health.
Oh my god. He needs to draw something really nice here off of the Animal Companion, maybe Leox, then he can pair his Stone Tusk Boar with Unleash the Hounds. But what a cruddy hand if you're Savjz. And this does happen once in a while with those Hunters decks because you just don't draw into a good curve. He's at 10 health.
I feel like the Stone Tusk Boar is telling him, hey, play me and then double kill command yourself because you're going down with this hand.
And Harrison Jones has the most troll smile out of any card that I've seen in Hearthstone yet. He's asking if there a problem with all the weapons that he's stealing. Just look at it. His eyes wide open, the poop-eating grin that's ear to ear.
It's tough.
He is
Harrison
so smug
Jones is
right
an
now.
MVP card. It's an MVP card of this tournament.
I think this is a sign that of desperation. He's going to go for a full board Unleash the Hounds, but he doesn't even have things like Hunter's Mark to try and go for a good removal, so he can't even go for a full clear.
This is so sad. Do you coin the board to actually kill the 2-1 and just leave the 1-1s?
Oh my god.
Savjz in the hour of frustration mode.
This is so like, you do not like the situation whatsoever. Harrison Jones is staring at you. 5 damage right here. Amaz actually should drop Tyrion too, just to kind of continue to push. Like, there's no reason why you shouldn't.
I think Amaz should actually drop Tyrion because all those games, he's just not doing it. He's just keeping that Tyrion for the last moment. So this is the moment.
Yep, and I think Savjz, like, you see the Tyrion. There's no way for you to come back. He draws Freezing Trap, which could stall the inevitable.
Freezing Trap. He's using kill commands. So I guess Freezing Trap is a go. Do you attack with the dog?
Well, he's got 12 turns of hero power if he can last that long.
That one brave watchdog just staying there.
This is a scenario where I think hero powering or using Acolyte's fine, just to kind of bait out the Freezing Trap. You know it's Freezing Trap because he removed the Harrison Jones, and there's no chance for it to be explosive unless it's a great bluff by Savjz. Animal Companion, but I feel like it's a little inconsequential. Huffer can't do anything to Divine Shield. He has to use a Stone Tusk board in order to chew through.
You can still use the Stone Tusk board to actually kill the 4-5.
This
And
does
then
not
maybe
feel
kill
good
command the Acolyte
whatsoever.
and play another freezing trap. Oh wait, one freezing trap is still there. Okay. So he is defending. Like I have to give it back to Savjz. Like he is surviving this game.
No, he's not gonna even try to delay it. Freezing trap did not go down. Oh, it is still up. Just
There
kidding.
is one freezing
I
trap.
couldn't see it. I thought he triggered it, and I didn't see it at the top of the hero power, so makes sense.
Do you attack with Tyrion?
He needs buzzard right here. He doesn't get it. He still has no buzzard.
Just throwing the cards on the
He
board.
can't do anything. He knows this is game over. Savjz gets a Leok as another mockery. And you know what? Tyrion ends the game with probably his Divine Shield, something you don't see every day.
So for our Finnish viewers, Torilla Tavatan, Savjz is going down.
And Amaz goes to the grand finals 4-1, 3 wins with the Paladin deck. And what a surprise Uther has been for the VGVN Naxxramas release tournament. Your finals is Reels versus Amaz. It will be a best of 7. And you know what? I think Savjz played a great tournament in the group stages. It's quite unfortunate the series of draws happened the way it did in the last game. It seemed like even like reflecting on his handlock game where he just needed that soul fire, but he drew it 1 card off. Again, the RNG was not with Savjz this tournament for the semifinals at least, but at least I think top 4 is a great placing for him.
I love it, Froden. I really love it. It's like kind of old school versus new school. If we can call Amaz new school, I feel like Amaz actually was playing Hearthstone from the beginning, but in the beginning of the tournament scene, Savjz was one of those prominent players, and he was dominating. And now Amaz is dominating, so it was kind of like old school versus new school. And Amaz is winning 4-1 versus Savjz. I'm sure Savjz is not that salty about it because they are teammates, so he is also rooting for Amaz. But still, this is a very important score. And now, in the final, both Paladin players, really good players, great players with all those cool decks, cool ideas, will face each other in the best of 7 final. Remind me, Frodan, what are we actually watching?
We're going to be watching the grand finals coming up after a break, but before that, we want to remind you about the VGVN Naxxramas release tournament and what it's about. The Video Game Voters Network is an activist group where they like to kind of raise awareness based off what's going on with First Amendment rights and playing games. They don't want it to be unfairly pegged for stuff, so check it out. I believe the bot is kind of broken. Too many people typed ! giveaway. So click on the banner at the bottom of the Twitch chat to get more information and enter for a chance to win a cyber-powered PC. Specs and all information is laid out in that little webpage. So do that while we take a minute or two to reset and get ready for our grand finals between Reels versus Amaz. We'll be right back.